So it's not just about calling home or checking your role. It's about making connections. Relationships, not just reminders, get students to show up. In the next episode, we're going to talk about this buzzword, attendance. And we're going to talk about what moves the needle when it comes down to attendance. It's about belonging. It's about trust. It's about understanding students need to feel like their voice matters. We're going to talk about how schools can, partner with families. We're going to talk about what's the biggest myth around attendance, and also how can leaders create a culture that is conducive for children to come, right? So I'm excited about this opportunity. My next guest is Johnetta Moore, and she's the attendance specialist. And she's going to share strategies with us. And we're going to dive into something important to the life of a school that's not talked about a lot. So, hey, do this for me. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can get more transformational information. Let's go.
Transforming lives. Inspiring stories from educators worldwide. Impact happening worldwide. Your transformation starts here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Transform Lives Podcast, and I am just excited about my guest. You heard about Miss Johnetta, and I'm excited about it. So welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited also.
Well, good deal. So usually I ask my guests, because this is 50 educators from 50 states, I have to find out how is the weather where you are.
So I'm in Maryland. We are experiencing what I like to call a fake spring, because it is it is spring, but it's still windy outside. It's still a little cool, but the sun is shining today. So I look forward to, enjoying some of that.
And I guess I need to call it a fake spring in Mississippi, because the weather is kind of like, it's almost, it's spring-ish. Mm-hmm. And it's, so I like that term. It's not being true
right.
for what it is, right?
Yeah,
Good
it's
deal.
All the way there yet, but it's coming.
Gotcha. Good deal. So I want to jump right in, just kind of get the background. Our focus is that we're highlighting educators across the United States. And I've shown some love to Maryland. I want them to know that. They need to send me a bumper sticker or something from Maryland. But here's the thing. When we think about transformation, my question is, can you share a transformational experience that shaped your journey as an educator?
Sure. So I like to call myself a lifelong educator. I was one of those kids who was, playing teacher when I was little with my dolls and stuff on the porch, right? So I would say early in my journey, I had a teacher tell me that I was not just smart, but I was a leader. And when she told me that, it really made, it really meant a lot to me, because I did admire and look up to that particular teacher. And I was always, one of those kids who knew that I was smart. I was smart. I was like naturally gifted. But for her to tell me that I was a leader, it was almost like she was giving me power, saying that she saw me and that she valued me. So as an educator, I've always tried to connect with my students in that way, not only just to let them know that you're smart, but you're smart enough to lead others and to make others feel seen and valued.
Oh, that's good. That's a powerful experience, because, and that's going to kind of lead into our next question as well. How us as educators, we impact the future with our words and actions. Like that's powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, with you mentioning how, this teacher valued your voice, played a big role in your journey, how, for the listeners, you spoke on being a student, but how do we as educators ensure today's students feel heard and valued in the classroom, in the hallways, in the school?
I would say first we have to listen. We are, listening is something that gets lost, because there's so much noise and there's so many people saying everything. People always feel like, they have to always be the one talking. They have to always be the one heard. And especially as educators, we're so used to teaching and telling that we don't always slow down and listen to students and listen to families. Because if you do that, they're giving you all the answers that you need, right? Students tell us all the time how they want to be treated. Parents tell us all the time how they want to be treated. That's in communicating with us and not communicating with us. So I would say the first thing is to listen, get feedback, and then actually put the things in place that you heard.
That's good. And I can connect with that statement of listening, where this transition into the podcast space, I kind of started this thing out and it was like, okay, we get some people on, but the most effective conversations come down to, are you able to listen to the substance of their conversation? It's just like now, it's like, I got my pencil in my hand, I got my paper here, because you have to listen to the person, and there's value in listening to the individual, and then the individual feels empowered, right? If you don't listen to them, I love what you said about, it's almost like parents give us a cheat code. Sometimes we don't want to listen to it, but they give us a cheat code.
We don't. Yeah. We don't want to listen. We want to do what we think is the answer, or what we know to be true. Right. But we can shift that. And like you said, it's almost like a cheat code. Like they said, do this, and you do it, and it works. So.
Yeah. And being an educator and being a parent, I've functioned in the role of parent a lot more in this particular school year. Not saying I wasn't a parent. Let me be clear. I'm on national, but just saying that I understand it better. Like many times you have the educator hat on, and you don't have the parent hat on, and you miss a lot of valuable experiences that you can have with teachers, or vice versa. So it's good to hear this term, just listen, and how impactful it is. And this next segment, we want to kind of focus in on just attendance. I didn't know how important attendance was. Like you think, okay, if you were in the classroom, okay, make sure you put your attendance in. But as you move to different positions, you understand if they're not there, who's learning? Right. Yeah. So you emphasize that, that improving attendance requires collaboration. I agree with you wholeheartedly, between the school, the teacher, and the parent. So what are some ways schools can foster a stronger partnership with families?
So one thing that I like to do, I like to help schools build systems, right? Where listening is part of the culture, right? And it can't be like a one-time thing. So you have to incorporate opportunities to have the space to listen to students, to listen to families, right? So that may mean training educators to use like quick, consistent check-ins with students. It could just be a simple, if you notice that a student is coming late to your class, because it doesn't always have to be the student's not there at all. It can be that the student is arriving late to your class, and it's a pattern. It could be like, hey, I noticed you've been late 2 times this week. Is everything okay? What's stopping you from getting to my class on time? And just by asking that question, you can find out what's going on and possibly remove a barrier, right? That's stopping that student from coming to your class. Then you celebrate small wins. And when you say celebrate, a lot of educators are like, oh, well, I don't want to have to buy them something or do something just because they show up on time. And you don't have to buy, you can simply just praise, if that particular student is showing up more regularly, like, oh, I noticed that you're coming more often, good job. And I always tell, teachers, school leaders, you have to use the data. We get data, like you said, just by a teacher saying, yes, this student is here. No, this student is not here. That's factual information that you can use to guide the conversation, right? Yeah. To find out what's going on, not necessarily pass judgment, but to really find out what's going on with that student. And oftentimes when those quick check-ins happen and those small wins, that student may feel more comfortable and, begin to build a habit of showing up, not only showing up, but showing up on time and showing up more on a consistent basis.
Oh, this is good, because if you only look at attendance at this surface level, you miss the substance that's there. So if a student maybe is maybe it's late a couple of times, of course, having that conversation like you're talking about, that conversation with the child and preventing some of that, some of those actions that eventually turn into, okay, now that child is skipping.
Right.
It's a domino effect that's there, and just celebrating those small wins. I remember going to a professional development early on in my teaching career, and a gentleman said this, what are you putting in their bucket? Mm-hmm. And he asked, what are you putting in their bucket? If nothing's in their bucket, how can you ask them to give you something? Mm-hmm. And that blew me away, because I sat there and asked myself, well, I'm not putting anything in their bucket. And it's praise. It is celebrating those small wins. So that's very impactful. Oh, thank you for sharing that part of it. So, again, when we talk about attendance, we also need to talk about maybe, these misconceptions, because when we talk about attendance, it's always check your attendance. Well, what are some misconceptions about attendance that schools and educators need to rethink?
The biggest misconception is, the students aren't coming to school, so the parents don't care. We automatically, we can, or, sometimes will equate attendance to if the parent cares about the student or not. And I always like to give, people an example, because I'm in middle school. I spent most of my 15-year career in a middle school setting. And middle school students are a trick bag sometimes. So we had a particular student that was coming to school late, not coming to school. So I asked, another member of my attendance team to go and do a home visit, because we tried to call all the numbers didn't work. So I asked her to go out and do a home visit. Well, she went out to do the home visit. The parent wasn't there, but the neighbor was there. So she was like, hey, I'm looking for whatever student, tell the parent to contact the school. Well, about 2 hours later, the parent didn't just contact the school. The parent came to the school. Like, hey, you came to my house, because when you come to somebody's house from the school, that's a big deal, right? Yeah. So, so the parent gets there, we're able to engage with the parent, have a conversation, call the student down, and come to find out the parent was dropping the student off every morning at the corner 15 minutes earlier than usual, just because of a change in a work schedule, right? So the student was then leaving and going, to hang out with friends, go to the store, have a good time, and then come into school. So the parent was unaware that that was even happening, right? So because we were able to have that conversation, the student start coming to school on time every day as a result, just because the parent was informed. So it's very easy to assume that they know, and when the kids get older, like middle school, high school,
Right.
they might not know.
Yeah.
And if they do know, why is this, not an issue? Because sometimes the school issues are not the family issues. Maybe they don't know that their student can only miss 10 days in a school year and be considered chronically absent. They don't know those terms. Those are our terms.
Yeah, right.
So I would say, informing, because that's often a misconception that parents don't care if their kids are not coming to school, but they could just not know.
Right.
Or if they do, maybe they don't understand the implications like we do.
Yeah. That's again going back to these roles of you as a educator. You think one way, but then you have to put the parent hat on to recognize even that experience for that parent where they had to make some type of shift and adjustments.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how important changing the when the doors are open up in the morning. Are they open up at 7:15 or 7:05?
Because 15 minutes for a middle school student is a lot of time.
Right. I get it. I'm a lifelong. I kind of work in both the middle and high, but I get it now. Like you have to run a systematic way, because if they find a way in that system to kind of wiggle through, they are going to wiggle through. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just, maybe I did the same thing. I don't know. They're going to wiggle through if that system has some type of any type of ways to kind of avoid it. But I think communication is huge, and
it is.
That just communicating with the parent. I was trying to play out the scenario in my mind. Like I'm thinking of the parent coming up to school, thinking like, I dropped you off at this time. Where have you been? So,
yeah. Things were exposed.
Right. No more going to the store buying chips and that's a whole yeah. So that's good, because when you communicate with someone, it's not a one-way street. It is both individual, both parties being able to listen. Go that word again. Listen. When I think about the 50 educators from 50 states, one of the terms or the themes that shows up a lot is relationships. Doesn't matter what part of the United States you are. It's about relationships and establishing that relationship, establishing that rapport. So, in preparing for this, you mentioned that relationships are not just reminders. So I'm ready to hear this, because you said relationships are not just reminders. Get students to show up. Can you kind of walk that out for me? Because I'm ready to hear about this, because that's hard.
And I say that because like I said, most of my time has been in a middle school setting, and in Title I schools, or schools where students are quote unquote 2 or 3 grade levels behind, right?
Yeah.
And the community and the parents that I have worked with over the years, they just want real talk, real solutions. Don't come at me with all that school stuff, nothing fancy. Just,
Right.
just keep it short and keep it brief, but you also need to show that you care, right?
Yeah.
Each person, each student that walks through the door has their own individual story.
Right.
And sometimes if you don't know that story, you can't, they don't care what you do. They don't care what you teach. They don't care that you're the principal, the assistant principal. They're not going to listen to you until you know their story. And we're so quick as educators, just to say, well, they know me, they know I'm the teacher, they know that I care about them. You can't take that for granted. So when I say relationships, not reminders, if I have a relationship with you and you know that I care about your student, when I call you and tell you that your student is not coming to school or your student is showing up to my class late, that's not just a blanket robocall or a blanket text message. You know that that's coming from somebody that cares about your student. And you build that relationship by making those phone calls. So yes, you're going to make the phone calls, but it shouldn't always be when the student is not here. Make a phone call like, hey, Tony came to school today. I am so glad he showed up. I know that you are a good mother because you are doing your best to send him in here, right?
Yeah.
So the next time I call when Tony has been absent for 3 days, you know that it's not just a blanket generic phone call. So that's why, I kind of go back to like the check-in system, because if you're checking in with a student, if you're doing a quick check-in with a student, you can also do a quick check-in with a parent, right? And sometimes it may not always be the teacher, but that student or that parent should have some trusted adult at their school that they have some type of connection or relationship with. So it doesn't just feel like another call or text message, or they just sending another letter to my house. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by that. It's like you have to actually connect with people first, in a positive way, a positive situation, before you can quote unquote correct.
You are. Let me go ahead and do this right now if I can find it. Well, it's not working, but that's okay. But I'm gonna clap right there because this is important to the life of a school district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If parents don't believe that you care about their child, it's not that stakeholder.
Right.
They are a stakeholder in
a huge stakeholder. Mm-hmm.
As you were talking, I'm thinking about my parents in general on how, and of course I'm from Mississippi, born and raised in Mississippi, small rural town, and how it worked out was the factory was down the hill and the school was up the hill. So one of the leverage points was that, they would communicate and call the factory to call our parents. And it was like, I can remember in second grade, like I remember I'm just being a tyrant, just terrible. And I turn and I look at the door, and not only is my mom there, but my dad is there. And I remember distinctly bursting into tears.
Instantly.
Right, because I knew it was over. I knew that whatever, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Just go ahead and take your crying, because I knew at that point. And the teachers are sitting there smiling. Never told me, never told me. I mean, now I get it now as an educator. Like I get it now, but the impact that relationship, and it goes in many directions of the relationship the educator has with the parent, but also the teacher has with the student. But it's all together. Like it works all together, and how, God, that's how you change the game. include the
Yeah.
parent and let the parent know you generally care about their
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I think a lot of times parents want to help. They just may not know how to help, because again, we're the school. So we'll say, well, they can just come up here and volunteer. That's maybe intimidating, because what am I going to do? What are they going to say to me? Who am I going to talk to? It's they may not know how to help or how to come and volunteer. But if we inform them, then it may make a difference, right?
Oh no, it makes. I'm telling you, real time. As
Mm-hmm.
an educator, going in and volunteering for my
Mm-hmm.
son's chess tournament, and you're looking at all these third graders, and you're like, okay, number one, I am not an elementary person. This is number one. Let's establish this right now. But your presence is power.
Right.
But on the other end, you have to be inviting for the
Yeah.
the parent has to feel like
Absolutely.
they're not just wanted, but there's a invitation there once you get there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, that's you're gonna get me on the talking range because I'm like I've changed my whole like philosophy on how my approach to parents as an educator. Just really
Yeah.
walking in that role as
Mm-hmm.
okay, when I go into the school, I'm knowledgeable of what the educators know, but it's also saying to me, okay, this parent next to me doesn't really understand this,
Mm-hmm.
and how you need to have this inviting atmosphere, and
Mm-hmm.
a simple thing of a teacher coming and looking you in your eyeballs and just generally saying, "Hey, I'm happy to see you here."
Mm-hmm.
That didn't cost them nothing, but
Nope.
that makes them feel, or that made me feel like I'm involved. Right? I didn't want to do anything.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I knew this attendance thing would be. It's important.
Yeah. It's loaded.
Yeah, like you don't talk about it as much as is needed until it's needed, where it may be
Mm-hmm.
chronic absenteeism. I got that out.
Right.
And that's when we start talking about it, but you have to be preventative in
Mm-hmm.
your systems to make sure that when that phone call is made. So, if any, what are some practical low-cost strategies that schools can implement today to improve attendance and engagement?
Well, I definitely recommend, things that are practical and low cost. A lot of times, when I said earlier, if you ask students what they want, sometimes they'll design incentives that pretty much matter to them and motivate them, and it may be something as simple as a popsicle party. So you just go and buy the class or the grade level some popsicles. You could let them spend some time in the gym, free time. Older high school students, middle school students love free time.
Right.
It could be 15 minutes of free time just because everybody in class showed up on time for 3 to 5 days in a row, right? Um, Advisory is another opportunity to just kind of do those check-ins and celebrate growth by passing out a certificate, pass out a free homework pass. All those are free and low cost. Also, if the budget permits, we do monthly attendance trips. So students who have shown improvement for the past 30 days, or students who got perfect-ish, because we don't say perfect attendance, it's perfect-ish attendance. 1 month they go, the next month the students would improvement go, because you don't want to miss anybody, right? So you can do, if you can fit attendance trips in the budget, do trips just geared towards attendance. Do lunchroom parties. That's a short period of time, 20, 30 minutes. You pop some popcorn, you hand out some bags, turn the radio on, and it's an attendance party. So there are a lot of low cost, low lift ways that you can celebrate attendance if budgets are thin, because a lot of times people may not celebrate it because they'll say, oh, I don't have the money for it, I don't have the budget. But it doesn't take much to celebrate kids, especially if you ask them and let them create it. You'll save a lot of money.
Right. No, this is good. And if it's not on that initiative list for school leaders, kudos to them that the attendance is going well. Sometimes that's something that you really have to focus on, but goes back to if they're not at school, who's teaching them? So before you design this awesome curricula, like, that sounds good, but if Tony's not in that seat, if he's only here one day a week, it's hard to kind of section me out into first period, second period, third period, and it's a lot that it's impacted by a student not being at school. So thank you for those suggestions. Like, just pop some pop. I don't understand how popping some popcorn could just make kids happy. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it gets them going. Anything different, but it's really anything different than a normal routine, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you state what it is, what it's for, and give them a criteria, and they work towards it. That's really what it's about.
Yeah. And that is something that is different. And that's an inexpensive way to start. Just pop them some pop. They smell the popcorn. It's just they get excited. So that's good. Thank you for sharing those. So now we're going to look at just kind of talk about leadership. How can school leaders create a culture where students feel a sense of belonging and motivation to attend regularly? Because that is a thing. Your culture and your climate, it's a thing. It's real.
It is, and I think it really starts with that leader being clear on the school community and what the school community needs, not what they think the school community needs, and then being consistent, because sometimes if you're not consistent with a thing, it's not going to improve. And then once you're clear and consistent, you need a system to follow that you can follow repeatedly, right? So that's kind of like, when I do talk with school leaders or teachers, I'm very systems oriented, right? But a part of that system is a plan that involves like I said, like the student check-ins, right? Being able to check in with the students and make the student feel like they belong. You also have to have staff members who are accountable for doing the work or who wants to do the work. Everybody on the staff have to be speaking the same language in order for it to work. You have to empower the entire staff, staff. Then you have to empower other stakeholders like parents, community members, to be involved. And then once everybody's aligned, that's when you see like the real culture shift of a school. And when the culture shifts, attendance is naturally going to improve. But you have to, like I said, again, you have to have a system. You have to make sure that your students feel valued. They feel like they belong. You have to empower your staff. And once you empower your staff, your parents, the community, so everybody's aligned and focused on that one thing, which is, attendance. But with attendance becomes student engagement, because once you get the students there, you still have to make sure that they're engaged and continue to come. So, like you said, attendance is just the one thing, because once you're here and we want you here and you feel like we want you here, then you're going to engage. That's when you start seeing the shifts in the academic data increase, the behavior data decreases, and then your culture is set.
Yeah, you're presenting it in a systematic way. I want to point that out. And this is essentially what's happening as I'm talking to different school leaders, educators across United States. You know, when I started this out, you think that, okay, well, this is going to be different here. Well, this is going to be different here. No, it's establishing a system and making sure a system is in place so that you're able to really give clear direction on where we're going. Because, you know, if kids hate coming to school, you know, what's the you have to get some, you got to clarify why they're not coming to school. Is it something at home, or they just say, I don't like coming to this school because all we do is just sit in here and just do worksheets?
Then you find out what the problem is, and then you can fix it. But if you don't know what the problem is, you can't fix the problem.
Right. It comes down to what you started out with. Listen. You have to listen, and can't skip over this. We got to round back. We're about to close this out, but we got to wrap back to this whole idea of knowing your community. That's not what you think, but actually getting into the community, and it doesn't have to be in a major way, but just understanding your community is so important. I can't. It's not what you think.
That's another segment,
right? Like that's. In fact, I'm writing that down because that's. As you're talking to school leaders, you can look at all these strategies, and all this stuff sounds good. But you got that stakeholder over there, that community, that parents. You have to address that, or they're going to address you. If it's unaddressed, it's going to be. Again, I'm going to step out of the way. I have enjoyed our brief conversation on not just attendance. I think that's kind of the theme of it, but it's interwoven in the fabric of a successful, a great, effective school. Is how do you address attendance? And thank you for sharing. I'm going to step out of the way, and you have the floor to kind of talk through.
All right. Well, I would like to say thank you so much for giving me the platform. I really enjoyed it. Again, I help schools build plans that include student belonging, checks, staff accountability, and community-facing outreach that works. Because when everyone is aligned and supported with real strategies, the culture shifts, and naturally attendance improves. And I do say this a lot, that you don't need more reminders. You need relationships, systems, and a plan that actually works. So thank you again for allowing me the space and the opportunity to come in and just share my thoughts on leadership and attendance.
Well, absolutely thankful that you came on, and you've provided a valuable component of schools. So thank you so much for sharing. And also, you check out, I will have her check out the description. You will see her bio, her link, a link tree, so that you can have access to those items. So again, this is Transforming Lives, 50 educators from 50 states via of Maryland, but also talking about attendance. So again, guys, thank you so much. This concludes our show.